There is a silent, almost imperceptible moment when the soul awakens. It is when, without warning, something within you begins to remember. It is not a thought, nor an ordinary emotion. It is as if an ancient force moves beneath the surface of consciousness, trying to pierce through oblivion. Dolores Cannon called this moment the point of remembrance, when the veil between worlds becomes thin enough for the truth to begin to whisper. And what this truth reveals is simple and disconcerting. You are not just a body. You are not just a mind. You are not even the story you repeat when you speak of yourself. You are a particle of a vast field of consciousness, a spark of the whole that projected itself into human experience, not to suffer, but to understand. Before time existed, you already were. You existed as vibration, as pure light, part of an ocean of conscious energy that moves in geometric patterns, forming realities, galaxies, entire universes. The soul, in this primordial state, has no name or form. It is simply presence. It was from this presence that the impulse to learn what it means to be separate, limited, fragile emerged, not because it desired suffering, but because it understood that expansion is only possible through experience. Dolores said that in its origin, each soul is like a singular note within an infinite symphony. Upon incarnating, this note plunges into silence to discover its own sound. Imagine for a moment that your entire life, every encounter, every loss, every inexplicable coincidence, is part of a plan you yourself designed before you were born. It's hard to accept, isn't it? To think that pain and chaos could have a purpose seems almost cruel. But according to the regressions conducted by Dolores, souls choose their challenges with surgical precision, defining the perfect scenario to expand what they came to learn. Nothing is random. Each circumstance is a carefully assembled classroom in the great school of existence. Free will is not the absence of destiny, but the freedom to interpret the script that the soul itself wrote. Have you ever felt that strange nostalgia for a place you've never visited? Or the inexplicable feeling of knowing someone you've just met? These lapses are not illusions. They are fragments of interdimensional memory, echoes of other existences that coexist with this one, vibrating at frequencies different from linear time. Dolores claimed that time, as we understand it, is a pedagogical illusion, an artifice created so that we can experience the sequence, the before and after, and thus build learning. In truth, everything happens simultaneously. Your past, future, and parallel lives are expressions of the same soul observing itself from different angles. What you call I is only a temporary focus of a much broader consciousness. When a soul decides to incarnate, it traverses layers of density until it reaches the physical plane. Each layer adds a new level of forgetfulness. This forgetfulness is necessary because the human experience demands authenticity. If you remembered everything, there would be no merit in choosing love over pain, nor courage in continuing when everything seems to crumble. Spiritual amnesia is a gift. It allows the soul to live as if experiencing everything for the first time, and thus generate new perceptions that enrich the whole. Dolores used to say that Earth is one of the most difficult schools in the universe, a laboratory where free will, intense emotions, and the ego intertwine in a web of accelerated learning. It is here that masters are forged. But if all this is true, why do so many people feel lost, empty, disconnected? Because the soul, upon incarnating, takes the risk of absolute forgetfulness. It plunges so deeply into the illusion of separation that it begins to believe it is alone. Daily life, with its urgencies and distractions, becomes a labyrinth that obscures the greater meaning. And yet, amidst the confusion, there are always subtle signs, vivid dreams that seem more real than wakefulness, premonitions that are confirmed, coincidences that defy logic. These signs are reminders from the higher self, the small cracks in the wall of forgetfulness. Dolores said that the universe speaks in symbols, and that every seemingly banal experience is an invitation to remember. Spiritual awakening is not an escape from the world, but a reunion with it in a new light. It is the moment when the human being realizes that they are both the actor and the screenwriter of their own story. When this awareness takes hold, fear begins to dissolve, failure ceases to have meaning, loss transforms into movement, and even death comes to be seen as a passage between rooms of the same home. The soul observes everything with a kind of quiet compassion, understanding that each event, even the most painful, is part of a plan for growth. Dolores Cannon asserted that we are living in a time of mass remembrance. Never before have so many souls simultaneously awakened to their interdimensional nature. She saw this phenomenon as the prelude to a cosmic shift, a turning point in human history where individual consciousnesses would begin to recognize themselves as parts of the same universal organism. This movement is not visible to the common eye. It happens in silences, in small epiphanies, in moments when someone feels unconditional love springing up for no apparent reason. It is the beginning of the return. Perhaps you are feeling this now, a quiet restlessness, a longing for something that cannot be found in this world. This is the calling. It is the vibration of your soul remembering where it came from and where it is returning. When you feel that there is more, it is because there is. When you look at the sky and feel that the universe is responding, it truly is. You are part of a living web of consciousness, and every thought of yours echoes through this cosmic web. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. In the end, everything returns to the same point, the origin. The soul that departed like a spark returns as a flame. Nothing was in vain. No mistake, no suffering, no doubt. Every moment was necessary for consciousness to expand, for the spark to become the sun. Forgetfulness was merely the shadow cast by the light of wisdom itself. And now, as the veil begins to lift, an ancient voice whispers in your mind, "You were never lost. You only ventured into the depths of creation to discover what it means to be." And so, on the threshold between the human and the eternal, memory begins. Dolores Cannon said that this is the true birth, not of the flesh, but of memory. Because the soul learns nothing new, it merely remembers. There are moments in life when time seems to stand still, not because something extraordinary has happened, but because suddenly, everything seems to make sense, or cease to make sense completely. You're sitting in traffic, the radio plays an old song, and something inside you breaks silently. A memory surfaces, perhaps from a distant childhood, perhaps from something you never experienced in this life, and a strange feeling takes hold of your chest. It's as if a forgotten part of you is trying to communicate. Dolores Cannon said that these ordinary moments are portals, cracks in the fabric of reality where the soul lets itself be seen. For instance, there's nothing mystical about the scene, just a human body, a distracted mind, and an ancient truth trying to emerge. Dolores told stories of people who, during their regressions, remembered places that don't exist on maps, and lives that could never be proven. One woman saw herself walking along cobblestone streets illuminated by two suns. A man described the metallic cold of a planet covered in crystals, where sound was visible and light had weight. None of them were lying. They were simply accessing the hidden layers of the collective unconscious, regions where the memories of the soul lie intact, awaiting the right moment to be decoded. What these stories have in common is the feeling of recognition. Each person, remembering, said the same thing. "I knew. I always knew, but I had forgotten." This phrase resonates in everyday life more than we imagine. When you meet someone and immediately feel a connection you can't explain. When you visit a place for the first time and without understanding know exactly where every street is. When a smell, a voice, or a gesture awakens an emotion that doesn't belong to this life. Dolores explained that the universe works in fractal patterns. Nothing is lost. Everything repeats itself in new forms. The people who cross your path today are reflections of old relationships, scenes reenacted on a new stage. Sometimes, that conflict with a coworker isn't about the present, but a continuation of a much older plot, written by souls who meet again until the learning is complete. Dolores used to say that life is a classroom disguised as routine. It is in the everyday, between emails, cues, conversations, and silences, that the deepest memories try to emerge. They don't reveal themselves in distant temples, but in the way we react to each small event. A setback can be a lesson in patience. A rejection can be a lesson in self-love. And loss, that relentless teacher, is almost always a reminder that nothing here is permanent. The soul uses the most banal details of existence to communicate. The challenge is to perceive the message before the noise of the mind swallows it. Once, in one of her sessions, Dolores attended to a man who said he had an irrational fear of the sea. He had never suffered an accident, but just hearing the sound of the waves made him panic. During the regression, it was discovered that he had drowned in another life. during a desperate escape on an old ship. The fear was not from this incarnation. It was a cellular memory, an unresolved echo that had accompanied him for centuries. When he relived the scene and understood its origin, something inside him was freed. At the end of the session, he cried not from sadness, but from relief. The fear wasn't of the sea, he said. It was of what I couldn't remember. This story reveals a universal truth. What torments us most is not what we experience, but what we forget. The soul tries to heal itself through repeated experiences. When you realize you are reliving the same kind of pain, the same frustration, the same dynamic with different people, it is life trying to show you the lesson you haven't learned. Nothing repeats itself by chance. Repetition is the mechanism of memory, and each cycle only ends when consciousness understands what the soul is trying to teach. Dolores said that we are surrounded by signs, a book that falls from the shelf, open to a specific page, a phrase you hear at the exact moment you needed to hear it, a dream that seems more real than the next day. The universe speaks through symbols, and symbolic language is the language of the soul. But you need to slow down to listen. The human mind, addicted to control, tries to rationalize everything, when the purpose is to feel. The soul doesn't explain, it vibrates. It sends waves of intuition, shivers, subtle discomforts. Every time you feel that something isn't right, it's your own conscience trying to protect you from repeating the same pattern. Amidst all this, a paradox emerges. The more you seek answers outside, the further you distance yourself from the source. The soul is not in the distant stars, but in the silent space between one thought and another. Dolores believed that hypnosis did not create memories. It only removed the layers of noise that hid them. Perhaps true regression doesn't require any trance, only the courage to listen to oneself without masks. When you allow yourself this silence, you realize that there is something, or someone, observing everything. An ancient, patient, serene self that knows every step even before it is taken. This presence observes your victories and falls without judgment. She has seen this movie before, in other eras, with other names and faces. She knows that fear is only a temporary curtain and that behind it, there is an immensity that has never been lost. Dolores called this the higher self and said that the greatest proof of evolution is trust, not in an external deity, but in the script that the soul itself wrote. When you begin to trust, even without understanding, something changes. Fears become smaller, problems lose their weight. Life ceases to be a succession of coincidences and begins to seem like a conversation between you and the universe. Perhaps the greatest mystery is precisely this, realizing that there is no mystery at all. Everything is connected. Coincidences, encounters, losses, dreams, they are pieces of the same design that can only be seen from above when the mind quiets down and the heart opens. And when that moment happens, even if only for a brief second, you understand that you are not a spectator of your own life. You are the author, the actor, and the setting all at once. And in that silent and absolute instant, the world seems to stop spinning. Not because everything has changed, but because for the first time you remember. There is something profoundly mysterious about the way life repeats itself. Different situations, different people, but the same feeling of déjà vu, as if we were reenacting an old play we already know by heart. Dolores Cannon said that the universe is spiraled, and that nothing truly returns to its point of origin. Each repetition is a higher turn, a more conscious version of the same learning. The pain that repeats itself is not punishment, it is insistence. It is the way the soul tries to make itself heard when the mind insists on not understanding. It repeats until the pattern breaks, until the human realizes what the spirit already knew. There comes a moment when the cycle becomes evident. You observe your own history and realize that the characters have changed, but the roles are the same. It's the same type of relationship that ends the same way, the same fear that prevents the same leap, the same guilt disguised as prudence. And that's when the revelation begins. Life is not an enemy to be defeated, but a mirror to be deciphered. What returns to you is not punishment, it's a reflection. Physical reality responds to what vibrates within, like a quantum echo projecting the inner landscape in the form of experiences. Dolores called this the holographic theater of the soul, a stage where each emotion creates scenery and plot. But how to break the cycle when everything seems inevitable? how to transform what incessantly returns into something new. The answer, according to Dolores, lies not in changing the world, but in changing the frequency of the consciousness that perceives it. The universe does not respond to words, but to vibration. When the soul raises its energetic signature, physical reality inevitably reorganizes itself. External change is merely a symptom of inner healing. Therefore, every awakening is, first and foremost, a collapse, the crumbling of the illusions that sustained the old self. It is necessary to lose in order to remember. It is necessary to unlearn in order to recognize oneself. What if suffering isn't a mistake, but a code? What if every pain contains the exact password to access a new level of consciousness? Dolores said that the soul doesn't speak in human language. It communicates through experiences. When we don't hear the whispers, it shouts at us through circumstances. An accident, a loss, a sudden crisis. None of this is chance. They are precisely planned triggers to lead the being back to the original path. This is how destiny manifests itself, not as a force that decides for us, but as a reminder of who we truly are. Once during a regression, a man described the sensation of floating above his own body, observing his entire life as if it were a film. He saw every mistake, every pain, and felt immense love for them all. I needed to go through all that, he said, because it was the only way to remember who I was. Dolores recounted that when a consciousness reaches this state of pure observation, something extraordinary happens. The weight of experience disappears. Guilt dissolves. Pain becomes simply a given. The soul sees beauty even in what humans call tragedy. But can we access this state without reaching our limit? Is it possible to remember amidst chaos, without needing a complete collapse? Perhaps this is the lesson of the new era, learning through awareness, not pain. Dolores believed that the planet is going through precisely this transition, a collective migration from learning through pain to learning through vibration. This means that the more aligned you are with the frequency of love and trust, the less life will need to use suffering as a tool for expansion. Pain is merely the alarm clock. When you awaken, the alarm stops. There's a scene she used to describe in her lectures. A man, after years of struggle and loss, was sitting silently watching the sunset. Suddenly, he understood that nothing he was seeking was outside of himself, that everything he was trying to control, heal, or avoid was part of the same process of remembering. He laughed and simply said, "So that's what it was all along. That's how enlightenment truly happens. Not as a grand event, but as a moment of recognition, a return to the obvious." Awareness doesn't come from the outside. It reveals itself when the inner noise quiets down. What if what you call failure is just the missing chapter to complete the meaning of the book? What if life isn't against you, but in your favor, simply operating in a language you haven't yet learned to translate? Dolores asserted that nothing is lost, and that even seemingly wrong decisions generate parallel lines of learning that return to the same source. Every choice is valid. Every detour is beneficial. The universe is too efficient to waste experiences. Everything that is lived is integrated. There is no error at the soul level, only versions of oneself exploring different possibilities of the same truth. When we understand this, fear begins to dissolve. Control loses its meaning. There is no longer a need to fight against the current, because you realize that the current is part of your own flow. Dolores said that surrender is the bravest act of a human being, because it requires total trust in something invisible. To trust is to recognize that the mind does not govern destiny, it only interprets it. And the more you try to control, the more you delay learning. The paradox is that true mastery is born from surrender. Perhaps the greatest secret of existence is realizing that there is no secret at all. That purpose is not hidden in the stars, but encoded in every breath. The soul doesn't wait for a grand event to reveal its plan. It manifests now, in the absolute present, where past and future meet. What you feel in this instant is what shapes the universe around you. Dolores used to repeat that energy follows attention. What you fear, you feed. What you accept, you transform. Reality is a mirror of your vibration, and every second is an opportunity to recreate the world. And then the question arises that echoes in all seekers. What happens when we finally remember? Dolores said that forgetting is the game, and that remembering is not the end, it's the beginning, because each memory opens new layers of consciousness, new questions, new portals. Learning never ends. it only changes form. And perhaps that is the most beautiful mystery of all, realizing that the soul does not seek to arrive anywhere. It simply dances. Each step, even those that seem false, is part of a cosmic choreography so perfect that it can only be understood when we stop resisting and begin to flow. In the end, all that exists is the movement of memory. The universe expands because you expand, and when you awaken, something awakens in everyone else. Consciousness is collective, interconnected, infinite, and perhaps, in the silence after all the questions, only one simple certainty remains. All the soul desires is to remember what the heart already knows, that there was never separation, only the illusion of having forgotten the love that always was. Dolores Cannon used to say that some souls didn't come to Earth to learn, but to remind others of who they are. She called them waves of volunteers, consciousnesses from different star systems and vibrational planes who agreed to immerse themselves in human density to assist humanity in its transition. These are people who have always felt out of place, as if they were in a place they don't recognize as home. From an early age, they realize that the world seems too heavy, too noisy, too unequal. They don't fit in completely, not because they are superior, but because they come from environments where fear doesn't rule, where communication is telepathic, and energy flows in harmony. Dolores reported that many of these volunteers lived the first decades of their lives feeling an inexplicable melancholy, a longing that isn't directed at any face, country, or time. It was, in fact, the vibrational memory of another plane of existence, an echo of home. In her regressions, she recorded hundreds of similar accounts. People who, under hypnosis, described impossible realities, cities of light suspended above oceans of energy, bodies made of transparent waves, planets where life is not limited to form. There were details so specific that they repeated themselves in different sessions, with individuals who had never met. A 42-year-old woman, for example, described the same environment that a 19-year-old had reported weeks before, a kind of bluish station where souls awaited their turn to incarnate, surrounded by luminous beings that seemed to emit musical tones as they moved. Dolores realized there was a pattern. These souls came with simple but profound missions. Some brought the vibration of healing, others of communication, others of balance between reason and sensitivity. All, however, shared the same purpose: to raise the frequency of the planet. But the curious thing is that almost all of them forgot the reason they came. At birth, they lost access to cosmic memory and became trapped in the earthly game, feeling strange in a world they didn't understand. Dolores explained that this was part of the contract. Forgetting is necessary for the experience to be authentic. Even so, the soul maintains a kind of internal compass, an intuition that constantly guides it back to the original path. That's why many of these people are drawn to spiritual themes, astronomy, nature, or humanitarian causes. They feel, even without knowing why, that there is something bigger happening and that they need to contribute in some way. One of the most intriguing cases reported by Dolores involved a child of only 5 years old who, during a regression session conducted out of curiosity by the parents, began to speak in another language, a language later discovered to have similarities to ancient Sanskrit, but possessing unknown phonetic structures. The child said that she came from the blue star and that she couldn't stay here long because her body was too heavy. And she described, with surprising precision, the movement of a solar system not yet identified at the time, which years later was confirmed by astronomical observations. Dolores was impressed, but said that what was most impressive was not the content, but the serenity with which the child spoke, as if remembering an obvious fact. Have you ever had the feeling of not fully belonging to this world? Have you ever felt that there's something in you that doesn't fit with the fast pace, the logic of fear and competition? Perhaps this feeling isn't confusion, but a memory. Dolores believed that many of us carry, even unconsciously, fragments of cosmic missions. Sometimes the function of a soul isn't to visibly change the world, but to keep a specific frequency alive. It can be through simple gestures, a compassionate look, a word spoken at the right time, a silent presence that calms the environment. Each awakened soul acts as a vibrational antenna that transmits a new form of consciousness to its surroundings. In her studies, Dolores discovered that volunteers often go through periods of profound loneliness before recognizing their role. This loneliness, she said, is the void between worlds, the interval in which the soul tries to adjust to the density of Earth. It is when life seems to lose meaning that the mission begins to reveal itself. It is in these moments that intuition intensifies and chance ceases to seem like chance. A seemingly random encounter, a book that falls into one's hands, a dream so vivid it seems like a message. All of these are memories being reactivated. The soul, realizing it is time to awaken, begins to reorganize events so that the human being perceives the calling. There's something almost poetic in the way the universe operates these synchronicities. Dolores said that the greater plan never imposes itself, it invites. It manifests in subtle patterns, symbolic repetitions that, if ignored, intensify until they become impossible to miss. And when it is finally noticed, something ignites within us, a flame that needs no explanation. The person begins to feel different, more sensitive, more empathetic, more aware of the effect their actions have on the whole. The awakening is not a sudden miracle, it is a gradual remembrance. Dolores believed that the waves of volunteers were helping humanity through one of the most critical moments in its vibrational history. She said that the Earth, as well as the souls that inhabit it, is undergoing an ascension process, an elevation of the global frequency that will change how we perceive reality. According to her, the planet is a living entity that also evolves, and human beings are its conscious cells. When the collective falls ill, the Earth feels it. When the collective awakens, the Earth flourishes. And that is why, even in the face of chaos, there is a hidden purpose in every event. The collapse of old structures is only the prelude to rebirth. If all this seems improbable, perhaps it's because we still look at the world through the eyes of matter. Dolores always said that truth doesn't need to be believed to exist. Believing or not believing is irrelevant. The universe continues to expand, consciousness continues to remember, and life continues weaving its invisible threads of meaning. Perhaps you have felt the call in the form of intuition, coincidences, a sudden need to change your life. Perhaps you can't explain it yet, but something inside you knows it's awakening. What if this feeling isn't confusion, but a reminder of a mission? What if the discomfort you feel isn't failure, but a sign that you are fulfilling the exact role you came to play? Dolores Cannon believed that when a soul remembers its origin, everything around it changes color. The world remains the same, but the perspective changes, and it is the perspective that creates reality. Perhaps the true revolution of humanity won't happen en masse, but in the silence of each being who decides to remember who they are and act in accordance with that memory. And when that happens, even if in only one soul at a time, the Earth will finally vibrate at the frequency of home. Dolores Cannon said that the planet is in transition, not a geographical change, but a vibrational one. According to her, the Earth is dividing into two frequencies, an old one based on fear and a new one founded on the consciousness of love. This division is not physical but energetic, two realities coexisting side by side, invisible to each other, separated only by the level of consciousness of those who inhabit them. As the collective vibration increases, everything dissonant begins to disintegrate. That is why the world seems increasingly chaotic. Wars, crises, catastrophes. None of this is the end, but the process of purification. It is the old system resisting its own death, while the new one begins to be born. Dolores described this moment as a cosmic birth. The Earth, she said, is a living being expanding to a new frequency, and we, as cells of this organism, feel the symptoms of this transformation. Some react with fear and try to cling to what they know. Others feel an inexplicable urge to change everything, profession, city, relationships, as if something inside them were saying that the old no longer serves. This sense of urgency is the sign of realignment. The soul is adjusting the body's vibration so that it can sustain the energy of the new Earth. Dolores warned, it is not a comfortable process. Everything that does not resonate with a new frequency will be exposed and will need to be transformed. In one of her most striking regressions, a woman described seeing Earth from afar, enveloped in a blue light that seemed to pulsate, like a beating heart. She said she could feel the planet breathing, and that a wave of energy was expanding from its core, altering the vibrational field of everything around it. When Dolores asked what this meant, the woman's voice changed. She spoke in a serene, almost mechanical tone, saying it was the recalibration, the moment when the planet would cease to sustain low-frequency vibrations. She also said that many would not withstand the new energy, not because they would be punished, but because they would choose to remain in the density they know. It was a soul decision. Dolores ended the session in silence with tears in her eyes. It wasn't fear, it was reverence. Have you ever felt that time is speeding up? That days pass like hours and that emotions seem to multiply in intensity? Dolores explained that this is a direct consequence of the vibrational shift. As the planet raises its frequency, the perception of linear time begins to collapse. The boundaries between past and future become more tenuous, and synchronicities become more frequent. It's as if the universe is trying to tell us that time was never a line, but a spiral. With each turn, we revisit the same themes in a new light, and what once seemed like destiny reveals itself to be merely a learning experience. But this collective ascension is not guaranteed. It depends on the level of consciousness that each individual chooses to maintain. Dolores said that free will is absolute. No one is forced to awaken. The earth offers the opportunity, but the choice is personal. And this choice is often made in silence, through the small decisions of everyday life, how we react to fear, how we treat others, what we feed with our thoughts. Every act of love expands the vibrational field of the planet. Every act of fear contracts it. The destiny of humanity, therefore, will not be decided by governments or religions, but by the sum of small individual vibrations. During her final years, Dolores reported a recurring dream. In it, she saw crowds walking in opposite directions, some heading towards a city bathed in golden light, others returning to a gray and silent region. Neither group saw the other, even though they were in the same space. When she asked in meditation what that dream meant, she heard inwardly, "It is the separation of frequencies." Soon she then understood that there would not be an apocalypse as we imagine, but a gradual, almost imperceptible change in which each soul would naturally migrate to the vibrational plane with which it most identified. This vision explains why some people seem to live in harmony, even amidst chaos, while others drown in despair. It's not luck or injustice, it's resonance. The external world molds itself to the internal vibration. Dolores warned that resisting change would be futile. The energy of the new earth cannot be stopped. It has already begun, and everything that is not in tune with it will be reconfigured. The best way to get through this period, she said, is to keep your heart open, to trust, even without understanding, to breathe, even when fear tries to tighten your chest. There is, however, a silent tension in this process. Dolores recognized that the transition would bring inevitable losses, not only physical, but emotional. Friendships would dissolve, families would drift apart, groups would fragment. Not because something went wrong, but because souls follow different rhythms. Some have already completed what they needed to learn together and now follow separate paths. It is painful, but also liberating. The separation is merely the prelude to future convergence, when all paths will meet again on a higher plane of consciousness. What if everything we call collapse is, in fact, the rebirth of the human species? What if the darkness we see in the news is merely the light of truth, exposing what has always been hidden? Dolores believed that humanity is about to cross the most important turning point in its history, the collective remembrance that we are creators, not victims. When this remembrance takes hold, fear will cease to be the axis of civilization, and at that instant, the vibration of the planet will change irreversibly. What comes next is uncertain, but Dolores used to say that the new world will not be built by prophets or leaders, but by ordinary people who choose to live consciously. A gesture of empathy, a decision guided by intuition, a thought of gratitude amidst the chaos. Each act, however small it may seem, alters the field of the entire planet. And perhaps this is the great turning point of all, realizing that the future is not arriving, it has already begun. With each choice of love, the new earth draws closer. With each reminder of who we are, the old world crumbles. And in the silence between one breath and another, the entire universe seems to whisper the same secret that Dolores repeated in her last lectures. Do not be afraid. What you are feeling is not the end of the world. It is its awakening. Dolores Cannon used to say that true awakening doesn't happen when you understand the universe, but when you feel the universe within you. Everything said so far, the memories of the soul, the repeated cycles, the silent missions, and the planetary transition, converges on a single purpose: to remember that transformation begins at the simplest and most forgotten point, within the human heart itself. It is there, and not in distant temples, that consciousness expands. It is there that the vibration of the world truly changes. The new earth that Dolores described is not a place we will go to, but a state that is already being born within each person willing to choose love instead of fear, trust instead of control, presence instead of distraction. You don't need special gifts to participate in this change. You only need to become aware of what you emit. Every thought is a wave, every word a vibrational field, every gesture a seed planted in reality. When you choose to act with kindness, even if no one sees it, you are altering the energetic web that sustains life. When you forgive, even without having received an apology, you are clearing old memories that have trapped entire generations in pain. When you decide not to react with anger, but with compassion, you contribute to breaking the cycle that has been repeated for millennia. Dolores believed that small daily actions have quantum power because the universe responds not to appearance, but to intention. The practical path begins with observation. Pay attention to how you feel when something irritates or saddens you. Instead of reacting automatically, ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? This simple pause changes everything. It's the moment when the autopilot disengages and the conscious being takes over. Dolores said that it is at this instant that the ego falls silent and the higher self begins to guide. Make this a habit. Before going to sleep, ask your inner self, what could I have done with more love today? The answer may come in a dream, in a memory, or in a silence full of meaning. The important thing is to listen. Another essential practice is learning to trust your feelings, even if you don't understand them rationally. Intuition is the voice of the higher self, and the more you follow it, the clearer it becomes. Dolores used to repeat that, the path is illuminated one step at a time, never all at once. Don't wait to be sure before acting. Take the first step with faith and watch the universe rearrange itself around you. Every synchronicity, every unexpected encounter, every improbable coincidence is a sign that you are aligned with your original frequency. Life begins to cooperate, not because it has become easier, but because you have stopped fighting the flow. In moments of fear or doubt, remember something simple. The universe doesn't make mistakes. Even when it seems like everything is falling apart, there's a hidden wisdom orchestrating every event. Loss, waiting, silence, everything plays a role. Dolores said that chaos is simply the order we haven't yet recognized. Breathe and mentally repeat, I trust. This phrase is a vibrational code. It doesn't change the world around you, but it changes your vibration, and the world inevitably responds to this new frequency. That's how awakening spreads, not as a sudden collective event, but as a silent contagion of consciousness. Perhaps Dolores's greatest teaching is that awakening is not a destination, but a continuous process. There is no finish line. The soul does not seek perfection, it seeks expansion. There will be days of doubt, relapses, discouragement, and that's okay. The important thing is to remember to return. Return to the center, to the breath, to love. Return to yourself. Life is a spiral, and each return takes you to a higher level of understanding. If you allow yourself, you will realize that you are already living in the frequency of the new earth, even before it fully manifests. It exists in every act of courage, in every silent forgiveness, in every thought of gratitude that you choose to nurture. The world doesn't need you to be perfect, just awakened. Every person who awakens changes the entire field of humanity, and perhaps that's the end point, or the beginning of a new story. Understanding that your awakening is the miracle the planet was waiting for. You didn't just come to survive the chaos, but to transform its vibration with your presence. Dolores Cannon believed that when a single soul remembers, 1,000 others feel the echo of that memory. Therefore, remember. Remind yourself. Now take a deep breath. Feel the weight on your shoulders lift. Realize that you are exactly where you should be. Everything you have lived, everything you have learned, everything you have endured has brought you to this moment, the point where awakening ceases to be theory and becomes a choice. Choose to live consciously. Choose to trust the flow of life. Choose to be the vibration you want to see in the world. And if these words touch something within you, don't keep them to yourself. Leave a sign that you heard, a comment, a heart, an anonymous word if you wish. Share what you felt. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and help this message reach other souls who may still be asleep, because every gesture of connection creates a bridge between worlds. And as Dolores said, with that serene smile of someone who already understood the infinite, you are not learning anything new, only remembering